Hey, buddy, hit that subscribe. Just a sec for you, but it means the world to me. They didn't even look me in the eye when they did it. We're terminating you effective immediately. That was it. No build-up, no explanation, no fake sympathy. Just a sentence read off a screen by a kid who still smelled like new leather seats and business school arrogance. He was sitting behind a massive desk that probably cost more than my first car, tapping away on a MacBook like he was ordering lunch instead of ending someone's career. I was 55 years old, standing there in a tailored jacket I'd worn to more board meetings than he'd ever been invited to, watching a guy I once met her try to erase me with a script. No handshake, no thank you, just an HR rep behind him, frozen stiff, like she'd been dragged into a hostage situation and told not to blink. Bradley Patterson Jr. looked exactly like you'd expect. Designer haircut, perfect smile, Stanford MBA framed on the wall behind him like a trophy, confidence inflated way past his experience, like a balloon just waiting to pop. You could tell someone coached him, probably his dad, probably a consultant charging six figures to teach him how to sound decisive. He didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate, didn't even breathe funny. Just read the words off his tablet, like he was checking off a to-do list. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, didn't beg. I stood up calmly, adjusted my jacket, and slid my badge across the desk. 28 years in logistics. 6 years in the Navy before that. You learn real quick when silence is louder than shouting. All I said was, I want to do this the right way. Tell your father the board meeting in 3 hours should be interesting. That finally made him pause, just for half a second. Then I turned and walked out, past the HR rep who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes, past the security guard who looked confused instead of threatening, past the lobby wall with framed photos of the founding team. Yeah, I was in those photos, standing right next to Bradley Patterson Sr. when we opened the Chicago headquarters back in '96. Funny how history gets inconvenient. Now, before I go any further, if this already feels like the kind of corporate mess that makes your blood boil, do me a favor real quick. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Not because I need it, but because stories like this don't get told unless people actually stick around to hear them. All right, back to it. 3 hours. That's how long Junior had between his first firing and his first legal nightmare. I imagine he celebrated. Probably fired off a LinkedIn post about tough leadership decisions and modernizing legacy systems. Hashtags ready. Hashtag NextGen, hashtag disruption, hashtag bold moves. Guys like him always think optics equal power. What he didn't know, what business school never teaches, is that real power doesn't sit in the chair. It hides in the paperwork. Because buried deep inside Anchor Point Logistics' shareholder agreement was a clause nobody ever thought would matter. Section 12B. And the moment he fired me, he stepped directly on it. Junior thought he'd just cleaned house. What he actually did was hand control the entire company back to one person he never should have crossed, while Junior was probably leaning back in that oversized leather chair, feeling like a corporate superhero. The clock was already working against him. 3 hours isn't a lot of time, unless you know exactly what buttons to push. See, the board packet had already gone out. Not the fluffy kind either. No vision statements. No motivational nonsense. This one was straight legal heat. Buried deep in the shareholder agreement was a section most people skimmed once and forgot forever. Section 12B, Emergency Succession Protocol. Boring title. Nuclear consequences. I wrote that clause years ago, back when Anchor Point was still duct tape, folding tables, and ambition. Back when Bradley Sr. had ideas bigger than his attention span, and compliance was something he thought you handled with a handshake and a grin. Section 12B said one simple thing. If a founding member is terminated without a formal board vote, and that termination is initiated by someone with zero equity, then all executive authority freezes immediately. No loopholes. No takebacks. No, oops, my bad, email. Authority doesn't transfer. It reverts. Straight to the majority shareholder. That would be me. While Junior was probably drafting a company-wide email about streamlining leadership, I was activating the protocol. Dated Signed, time-stamped, notarized, hand-delivered, every board member, every investor, general counsel included. Unlike his little termination memo, mine came with certified receipts. Here's what Junior never understood. I never built my position at Anchor Point to be visible. I built it to be untouchable. There's a reason my ownership percentage never showed up on glossy brochures or the company website. I wasn't chasing titles. I didn't want my name on conference rooms or plaques in hallway. I wanted leverage. While other executives were fighting over corner offices and ego boosts, I was negotiating equity. Half a point here, a full point there. Stock instead of bonuses. Voting shares instead of inflated job titles. They played poker. I built the table and printed the deck. Back in the early days, Bradley Sr. offered me a VP title and a bigger office. I laughed and told him I didn't care about any of that. Give me ownership, I said. He joked. You'd rather own the foundation than live in a penthouse? Exactly. By year 7, I held 18%. By year 15, I had 35%. Then things got messy. The CFO stormed out after a brutal budget fight. Needed cash fast. Divorce lawyers don't accept stock options. I bought his shares at a discount. Later, Bradley Sr.'s brother tried to sue us over a patent claim that went absolutely nowhere. He wanted it buried quietly. I took his remaining stake in exchange for an airtight NDA and a promise to disappear. That's how I ended up at 72%. No press release. No celebration. Just clean filings with the Delaware Secretary of State. And sitting right inside that ownership, Section 12B. I added it after a family member once tried to fire half our warehouse staff during a budget tantrum. That was the day I decided this company needed a kill switch for people who thought power was inherited instead of earned. Junior had no clue, because business school doesn't teach you this part. Titles don't equal control. Control lives in contracts, in fine print, in clauses written at 2 a.m. with paranoid investors who ask, what happens if someone's unqualified kid gets promoted? Turns out it looks exactly like this. One arrogant firing, no board vote, no authority, and suddenly the legal trapdoor swings wide open. By the time Junior figured out how to access the executive parking garage, the board was already reading a memo titled, Immediate Suspension of Executive Authority. Section 12B activated. Yeah, that kind of memo. Junior thought firing me was his first power move. What he didn't realize was that the board had just received proof that he never had power at all. While Junior was upstairs pacing his new corner office, enjoying that fresh CO high, the mood downstairs was different. Dead quiet. That's how you know something's bad. The legal team didn't rush. They didn't panic. They didn't argue. They did something way worse. They slowed down. When lawyers stop talking and start reading line by line, someone's already cooked. The courier had dropped the packets like subpoenas, heavy envelopes, bold red stamps. Confidential. Section 12B activation printed right on the front. No small talk. No signature drama. Just a nod and gone. Inside was a 2-inch stack of paperwork. First page, clean, cold, professional. Emergency succession activation. Shareholder transition proposal. Under that, a timer. Board required to convene within 4 hours. That clock had already started ticking. The general counsel skimmed the opening page, flipped once, then stopped. He read one paragraph again. Slower this time. His jaw tightened just slightly. That's when he whispered it. Not yelled. Not panicked. Just, oh no. Then again quieter. Oh no, because there it was in black and white. Suspension of executive authority upon unilateral termination by a non-equity appointee. Translation? Junior just nuked his own job. They kept flipping. Equity breakdowns. Notarized filings. Archive board approvals. Share transfer records going back decades. Everything time-stamped. Everything airtight. And then the number showed up. 72%. The room shifted. You could feel it. Like when turbulence hits a plane and nobody wants to be the first one to grab the armrest. Because once you see that number, You know this isn't office politics anymore. This is fiduciary liability territory. You mess this up, you don't just lose your job. You get personally named. Phones started buzzing. Assistants canceling lunches. Board members ditching meetings, golf games. Whatever fake important thing they were doing that day. Nobody was smiling. Meanwhile, Junior was probably drafting a company-wide email about exciting changes and eliminating outdated leadership. Maybe he even practiced saying it out loud. Leadership requires tough calls for long-term vision. Yeah, about that. Because while he was typing buzzwords, the legal team was flagging his name in corporate systems as the sole initiator of an unauthorized termination. So, initiator. That's legal speak for you're on your own, buddy. And here's the part nobody expects. Once Section 12B is filed, it's irreversible. No apology tour. No, let's talk this out. No walking it back with a panicked email. That clause was designed that way on purpose. Investors demanded it after a scare years ago. They wanted a guarantee that if someone went rogue, they couldn't undo the damage with sorry and a smile. So while Junior strutted around headquarters pretending to run things, boardroom chairs were being arranged. And then Bradley Patterson Sr.'s phone rang 6 times. He ignored the first 5. Golf day at Meadowbrook was sacred. But the 6th call? Direct line. General counsel. He answered with a grunt. Cigar still in his mouth. This better be important. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. I need you downtown. Now, your son signed something this morning. Bradley Sr. frowned. Signed what? A termination he wasn't authorized to make. That was the moment his entire world tilted. What kind of situation are we talking about? He asked, already walking. The kind that triggers an emergency board meeting and legal exposure. Click. He didn't finish the round. Didn't say goodbye. Just tossed his clubs in the cart and drove back to the city like someone racing a storm. By the time he walked into headquarters, still wearing golf cleats, the lobby was tense. Legal was waiting. So was the CFO. 2 board members. No one made eye contact. The general counsel opened his briefcase and didn't waste a second. Per Section 12B of the shareholder agreement. Bradley Sr.'s face drained as the words hit him. Who authorized the termination of Chuck Patterson? He asked. Silence. He asked again. Louder. Finally, the answer came. Flat. Brutal. Your son. Acting alone. That's when he realized the truth. He hadn't handed his company to his son. He'd handed him a live grenade. Bradley Sr. still thought he could fix this. What he didn't know was that the meeting had already been scheduled. The vote was unavoidable, and I was about to walk back into the building they just kicked me out of. Bradley Sr. sat down like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. Not the billionaire founder anymore. Not the confident deal maker. Just a father realizing his kid had lit a match in a room full of gas. What happens now? He asked quietly. The general counsel didn't sugarcoat it. You attend the meeting. You listen. You don't interrupt. And when Chuck Patterson walks in and you remember he controls 72% of this company. That sentence hit harder than any lawsuit. Bradley Sr. rubbed his face, exhausted. He was never supposed to use that clause. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. Clauses don't care about intentions. They care about signatures. 2 hours. That's all that was left. Junior, meanwhile, was spiraling. Calls unanswered. Texts left on read. His Stanford group chat suddenly went silent. Turns out hostile takeover advice isn't covered in alumni perks. He tried pulling dashboards. Locked. Tried accessing financial approvals. Restricted. Tried calling legal. Sent to voicemail. That's when the panic set in. Because when systems stop responding, it's not a glitch. It's a message. At exactly 2:58 p.m., I walked back into the building. Same marble lobby. Same timeline etched into the wall. Same security desk. Only difference? The guard who'd escorted me out earlier didn't reach for a radio this time. He nodded, held the elevator. Conference room A, sir. The receptionist said softly. They're all waiting. 12 floors up, the air felt heavier. Like everyone knew something final was about to happen. I passed Junior's corner office. Glass walls. Door shut. He was pacing. Phone pressed his ear. Sweat creeping into that perfect haircut. The same office he'd strutted into that morning like he'd conquered something. I didn't stop. At exactly 3 p.m., I opened the conference room door. 8 board members. Every seat filled. No laptops open. No small talk. Just faces ranging from pale to resigned. Bradley Sr. sat at the far end, golf shirt wrinkled, confidence gone. He looked like he'd aged 10 years since lunch. I didn't sit right away. I placed my briefcase on the table, opened it slowly, and laid down one document. As majority shareholder of Anchor Point Logistics, I said calmly, I formally request a binding vote to rescind all executive appointments made within the last 48 hours, pending full shareholder review. The words landed like a gavel. The board chair cleared his throat. Motion received. Emergency session is now in order under Section 12B. I took my seat, not in a corner, not as a guest, at the head of the table. Someone had already prepared the nameplate. Charles Patterson, majority shareholder. That's when the door slammed open. Junior, face flushed, eyes wide, phone still in his hand, like it might save him. What is this? He demanded. Why wasn't I informed? I'm the CO. I looked at him for the first time that day. Really looked. This was the kid who used to call me Uncle Chuck, who'd ask me how freight margins worked. Who thought leadership was something you inherited with a last name? You don't have the authority to call this meeting. I said evenly, you never did. That's when it hit him. Hard. The firing. The claws. The silence. But the board appointed me, he stammered. You can't just... The board chair cut in. Your appointment was conditional and derivative. You hold no equity. Under Section 12B, your actions triggered this review. Junior looked around the room, searching for support. None came. He turned to his father. Dad. Bradley Sr. couldn't meet his eyes. The vote was called. One by one, hands went up. Unanimous. Junior still thought this was a warning. What he didn't understand was that the vote he just watched wasn't the end of his authority. It was the beginning of his exit. Junior stood there frozen, like his brain was still buffering. 8 hands raised. 0 hesitation. That's when reality finally slapped him. This is insane, he said, voice cracking. You can't seriously do this. Chuck, you're really going to blow up everything my father built. I leaned back in the chair. Calm. Controlled. Your father didn't build this alone, I said. He built it with partners. And partners don't get fired by junior employees playing CEO. That one landed. The board chair didn't drag it out. The motion passes. Bradley Patterson Jr.'s appointment as Chief Executive Officer is hereby rescinded, effective immediately. Just like that. No applause. No drama. Power doesn't scream when it works. It clicks. Junior looked around the room like someone might jump in and save him. Nobody moved. Even his dad stayed quiet, staring at the table like it held the answers to a test he forgot to study for. Dad, Junior whispered. Bradley Sr. swallowed hard. I'm sorry, son. This isn't about family. This is about the company surviving. That was the moment Junior broke. Not yelling, not threatening, just hollow. This isn't over, he said finally, trying to sound tough. Trying and failing. Yes, it is. I replied, you just don't see it yet. He stood there another few seconds, hoping someone would object. When nobody did, he turned and walked out. Security followed. And no, this wasn't symbolic. This was permanent. 30 minutes later, I was back in my office. Not a temporary space. Not a courtesy office. My office. The one I'd occupied for 15 years before they cleared it out to make room for Junior's innovation lab and foosball table. The nameplate was already back on the door. Charles Patterson, Chairman and CEO. Funny how fast things get corrected when paperwork is done right. Junior was escorted out the same way I had been earlier that day. Only difference? There was no comeback clause for him. No hidden protocol. No safety net. His BMW sat in the founder's reserved parking spot, keys handed over by security like it was a rental he'd overstayed. Bradley Sr. stayed, not as king, as president, reporting to me. Later that evening, we talked privately. No lawyers, no board members. I let family cloud my judgment, he admitted. He wasn't ready. I didn't argue. The next morning, no dramatic announcement, no all-hands meeting, no speech about bold new leadership, just business. Drivers ran routes. Warehouses stayed staffed. Clients got their shipments on time. The company didn't panic, because the company had always been stable. The only thing that changed was the illusion of who was running it. But Junior? Junior wasn't done yet, and neither was the fallout. Junior thought losing the title was the worst part. What he didn't realize was that the consequences of that one firing were still rolling downhill. Junior didn't go quietly. Guys like him never do. For the first week, his name popped up everywhere. Lawyers calling. Emails sent through third parties. Thinly veiled threats about wrongful termination and reputational damage. He even tried floating the word lawsuit like it was a magic spell that would rewind time. It didn't work, because you can't sue your way out of your own signature. Every document was clean, every step logged, every clause triggered exactly the way it was designed to. The same lawyers who once smiled at Junior in meetings now spoke to him like he was a liability risk. That stung. The real blow came when he realized the truth. This wasn't a hostile takeover. This was a correction. He tried rallying support. Old classmates, industry contacts, investors who used to nod politely when his last name carried weight. Nobody bit, because in this industry, people don't back noise, they back numbers. And the numbers were on my side. Anchor Point didn't miss a beat. In fact, we got stronger. 2 shaky contracts Junior had almost restructured got renewed. A client he'd brushed off as legacy baggage turned into our highest margin account of the quarter. Turns out experience matters. Bradley Sr. adjusted fast. He stopped trying to protect his son and started protecting the company. He showed up early, listened more, talked less. The man was still sharp. He'd just forgotten what real leadership looked like. Junior, meanwhile, disappeared from the building and reappeared online. A carefully worded post. Lots of vague language. Different visions. Mutual parting. Time to explore new opportunities. Comments were polite. Silence was louder. A month later, the board finalized the restructure. Clean, quiet, legal. I stayed on as chairman and CEO. The governance rules got tighter. No more ambiguity. No more family favors dressed up as strategy. Section 12B stayed exactly where it was. Untouched. Because you don't remove a fire alarm just because it finally saved the building. The lesson here isn't about revenge. It's about patience. Power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't post. It doesn't brag. Power prepares. It sits in the background. It waits in contracts, clauses, and contingency plans written long before they're needed. It's boring. It's methodical. And it always outlasts ego. Junior thought leadership came with a title. Thought firing someone made him strong. What he learned too late is that real authority is earned, documented, and legally impossible to ignore. Sometimes the person you underestimate isn't loud or flashy. Sometimes they're the one who built the ground you're standing on. And sometimes, when entitled ambition finally collides with earned control, justice doesn't explode. It clicks. Quietly, legally, permanently,